How do they do it? Why do they do it? Riding and crashing and riding and winning and always faster and faster.
Well, welcome back everybody to With Antone MotoGP. And you know, for years Ducati has been the genius bike to ride on the grid with its wings, its ride height devices and its perfect aero. And they've had it all. But have we just seen in the latest round at Phillip Island this weekend the beginning of the end of the Ducati dominance? Look, it was a great ride by Fernandez on the Aprilia, first win for Trackhouse. Great ride by Antonio to come through from 10th to put it on the box. And of course, Marco Bezzecchi charging through the field after his 2 long lap penalties. And now Bez sits third in the championship and sets a record for the 6th time Aprilia has put it on the box in any given season. And for the first time since 1998, no front row appearance for the Ducati. And that goes all the way back to Valencia in season 2000. Look at the sprint. No Ducati on the sprint podium ever. So, has the Ducati code been cracked? This week I want to dive in and have a look at why the changes are happening, why Ducati are no longer the leading force that they have been for the past few years, and look at some of the reasons that this is actually starting to occur. So, is Ducati really losing control of the front of the grid? The first thing I want to talk about is overexpansion. Now you remember Ducati kept building and building and they ended up with 8 bikes on the grid in 2024. Now this stretches any factory. The Bologna factory got stretched and they got stretched too thin. In fact, you could make an argument that they had too much data. And with the data and with the different preferences comes the politics. Now, it's hard to manage development when all the teams you're supplying, Gresini, VR46, Pramac back in the day, they all want factory performance. So I want to ask the question, is it a case of too many chefs in the kitchen? Now, internal politics, internal rivalries. Now, we have seen it in 2024. We saw it with Pecco Bagnaia and Jorge Martin. That wasn't so bad, you know. Pecco could learn a lot from Martin, and in a way, it was a symbiotic kind of relationship. But riders leaving and great talent going at the end of 24 into 25 really curtailed what Ducati were doing. Jorge Martin jumped off and went to Aprilia. Bezzecchi jumped off and went to Aprilia. And Bastianini jumped off and went to KTM. Now, it's impossible to keep all riders happy. Every rider on that MotoGP grid is a winner. And more importantly, every rider wants to win. So, you know, you bring a fox into the henhouse like Marc Marquez, and what else happens? You increase the internal drama and rivalry anymore, and you actually increase and you focus pressure on riders. And this is what we have seen with Pecco Bagnaia. Now, he did 1 lap on free practice 1 in Phillip Island. I don't even know if he completed 1 lap. Straight back into the pits. He's got a drama with his bike. And I will say one thing about Pecco. I've seen that bike shaking. Now, if he's really riding a hybrid bike, which is what's been said, then that could be the reason for that. Now, I want to talk about this copycat. Now, every motorsport fan, MotoGP fan knows that if one bike moves ahead, the others copy or they improve and they move. So all teams have been learning from Gigi Dall'Igna. He's the master. He's the master of aero. He was the master of ride height device. And their advantage at Ducati is now actually shrinking. And it's shrinking because of the lack of concessions that Ducati have. We're seeing Aprilia, KTM, and Honda, HRC, improving. Now, aero and electronics have been reaching parity. I believe that all the bikes are now becoming so even, and with that comes the closing of the gap between the 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 different brands that are on the circuit. Now I want to talk about brand fatigue. Now anyone who works in sports marketing knows that at one point everybody was saying, and I'm sure you did, I'm sure you said it as well, it was called the Ducati Cup. And fans became tired of the same bikes winning all the time. Now, brand domination is good for the brand like Ducati, but it's bad for the sport. Now, so what really brought about these changes for 2027 that Dorna are bringing in, I believe was directly a part of this Ducati Cup syndrome, if you like to call it, and the change for the specs that were now going to be brought in 2027. Now, what about some of the weak spots? Now, Pecco Bagnaia, what a fascinating exercise to a work of study you could actually do on this season. If you wanted to do your PhD in MotoGP this season, you could do it on Pecco Bagnaia, mental disintegration. But his form has dropped. He has got to the point, I don't know where he finished, I think it was last and second last in the sprint, and he crashed out today on lap 13. So I don't really know what's going on now. He is no longer guaranteed to be the number 1 in Ducati. Now Marc Marquez is the clear leader in that team, but the factory has been built on what Pecco has done. He's the most important rider in the history of Ducati. All of the senior figures in Ducati have said this. So now what happens to Ducati? What if Marc Marquez leaves the factory and makes a change to another manufacturer? For me, they have created a problem. Ducati have created a problem. They have let Marc Marquez into their system. He's a great rider, but they let those other riders go. And now what have they got? They've got 2 bikes running at the rear of the field. They have got a situation whereby Pecco, the number 1 star, has fallen to the back, and they don't even have a young generational talent coming through to put on the bike. Now, these are some of the questions we also have to ask. So the power is shifting. Honda have built new staff. They've stolen people, not only ideas, but they have stolen staff. Honda now are working with the chief engineer from Aprilia. KTM, they're constantly rebuilding and they're looking at what they can do. And the Yamaha are even going for the V4 engine to see if they can close the gap. But for me, the biggest threat to Ducati and the Ducati dominance is Ducati themselves. So Ducati with Gigi Dall'Igna, they brought him across, he rearranged the garage, he changed how they work, he put the remote garage in, he joined the development factory team to the racetrack, and they got the best riders on their bike, and they took over MotoGP. Ducati has been dominant, and Pecco has been that dominant figure. But once you're at the top, it's harder to stay there. The real challenge is not really for me here on With Antone MotoGP, the other teams. The real challenge that Ducati are facing is themselves and what's happening in the dynamic. And what are they doing about trying to control and expand on what the support is for their riders? Now, every empire in history fails, and there can also be some great comeback stories with any failure. And we saw that this season with Marc Marquez. So I want to end this episode with this question. What's going to happen with Ducati? Are we seeing the beginning of the end of their domination? And what do they need to do to turn it around? Support the riders, improve the bike, or just simply look at themselves and make the team a happy place to be? Anyway, I want to thank you for watching this week's episode. If you've enjoyed it, why not give it a thumbs up, or why not share this on to someone else who's a fan of MotoGP? And if you're enjoying the journey, then I'd love to get a subscription. So anyway, that's it for weekend today from Phillip Island, a great race. It always produces good racing, and today, perhaps it produced a glimpse of the future. Okay, bye for now.